Good evening, everyone. This here is it's a recap of day 21 of the Karen Reed trial. Let's get into it. And shout out to AB to the seventh power.
When we started Warby Parker, we just sold glasses. And only online. But people liked them. A lot. So we up.
Hey everybody, AV Live here. We are traveling. Hopefully we don't have really crappy internet Wi-Fi. Anywho, I just landed in cloudy today, and we are about to jump into today's testimony. Granted, it's really late, or there were a ton of delays. That was good for me because I could catch up with you guys. What we're gonna do to catch up to the live trial feed is to pick up where they left off. I am hearing that there was a voir dire of Dr. Welcher today. And the thing is with Dr. Welcher, important witness, this is a witness from the Aperture. And if you guys check this out on, what was it? Friday? No. Oh my God, we haven't been here in days. It's been forever. I feel naked without my soundboard, but I'm traveling, all right? So it feels weird. I wanted to hit the button for that. But Dr. Welcher is an important witness, and we are
Be right back in a second.
Going. With that being said, I'm going to bring us into what we missed this
Oh,
morning because
Lord.
I have not seen it, and I am really looking forward to this testimony. So let's see what the voir dire looked like, because Alessi was up there. And my sources tell me that Alessi was cooking. So it is fantastic. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I'm here for a good solid hour before I have to run to another meeting. So at most, we might be able to check out the voir dire. I did go to live feed. Hanky is taking forever with this witness. So it is likely that we'll get some more action on this tomorrow. Whatever time we missed today, guys, we will make up for it tomorrow and throughout the week. So I am looking forward to it. Many of you have probably seen it, but if you're here to watch it with me, welcome. And for all of those, look at what we got. 2Q by half. Okay, I was at the airport this morning, and one person recognized it. One of the TSA people. They were like, "Oh, it's AJ." I said, "Yeah, I wish I had my soundboard." I was like, "Yeah, it's AJ. It's an AJ shirt." All right, let's jump on in. Let me know what y'all have in your cups. I got some ginger ale over here. Starting off a little late. Let's jump in and see what shenanigans we missed this morning. And it looks like they had a long ass sidebar this morning.
They did.
Almost an hour. So let's get them on for voir dire. AJ still at the table while they are up for sidebar. I think we pick it up right around here.
But you changed your PowerPoint presentation, correct?
Correct. I deleted a slide and deleted.
All right. I think it starts right here. I can't wait. This looks like it's going to be great.
Oh, it is. You just don't know how great, AV.
Oh, great. Great. Yeah, I'm probably going to speed it up so we can get through it faster. We're going to go on 1.25 speed so we can catch up with everyone else. Are we ready? What's going on? All right, here's Dr. Welcher. Here is Dr. Welcher.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Good morning, sir. So we're going to have a short voir dire. Okay, so Mr. Lessie?
Morning, Dr. Welcher.
Good morning.
If you look at any documents in answering my question, I appreciate you letting me know that, okay?
Okay.
Do you have any documents open in front of you at this moment?
I do. I have.
You are not asked until the question
Can
comes
you
up.
do without it?
I have questions.
Okay, so just let us know if you need to look at it. Don't look at it without permission, please. right, go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Welcher, you have changed your PowerPoint presentation in the last few days in this case, correct?
I deleted a slide and removed a couple words.
Right, but you changed your PowerPoint presentation, correct?
Correct, I deleted a slide and deleted a couple words.
Who have you spoken to at the Commonwealth in the last 2 weeks? Anybody associated with the Commonwealth, who have you spoken to?
In the last 2 weeks, Mr. Brannon, Mr. Lowley, Lieutenant Tully,
Anyone else?
I think Mary Ellen Gray,
Anyone else?
the tech person Cindy this morning.
And with regard to those conversations, what prompted those conversations? Who initiated them?
I was originally told I was going to have to be on here last Monday. There was a whole flurry of conversations around that. I was initially told I may have to give all my rebuttal testimony on a whole huge data set I've received.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. My question was simply because we have a limited amount of time. Who initiated the conversations?
Oh, there were multiple conversations.
How many?
I have no
More
idea.
than 10?
I'm sorry?
More than 10?
Probably not.
All right, what did you discuss with, you understand it's no longer Detective Lieutenant Tully, it's, as I understand, it's Lieutenant Tully. Did you have you said you had conversations with him, correct?
Correct.
When was the first conversation, how many, and what are the nature of those conversations?
Are you limited to the last 10 days or in total in my life?
Within the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks. I believe it was when I got here on Saturday night. I informed them I'd landed.
You know, one of my favorite things about the deck drawers, other than their 2000.
Sorry about
Up on
that.
top, and
When I got here on Saturday night, I informed them I'd landed. And then Sunday morning, he gave me a ride over to the district attorney's office.
And what did you discuss from when you, did you have any discussions with Lieutenant Tully before Saturday? Within the last 2 weeks?
Not to my knowledge.
What did you discuss with Lieutenant Tully? Topics.
Give me a time frame.
I keep saying the last 2 weeks. That's the time.
All the conversations I have with him.
Yes,
Can you have somebody pick me up at the hotel?
I'm talking substantive, sir, about your outline, your PowerPoint presentation. Topics, what discussions about your...
Not getting rides.
In your PowerPoint presentation.
I had no discussions with him about the topics of my PowerPoint presentation.
Who did you have discussions with from the Commonwealth about the topics in your PowerPoint presentation?
Mr. Brandon, Mr. Lowell.
Describe those conversations and how many you had, including the first one that you had.
Well, I originally submitted my presentation with my original report way back, I believe, in January.
Right, I'm asking for conversations within the last 2 weeks.
Okay, question wasn't clear. Then on Sunday, we just went through top to bottom through my presentation. Mr. Brandon wanted to make sure he understood everything in it. And then I met with Mr. Brandon again on Sunday. We ran through it briefly again. And then that was partly it.
Who suggested the changes to your presentation?
Mr. Brandon.
Mr. Brennan suggested the changes that you made.
He indicated some of the things, for example, the slide I deleted referenced testimony that I was not allowed to include on a slide.
Were there any discussions with anybody from the prosecution team about the changes with regard to the, what I would call the Dighton route, the Dighton distance, and the total mileage? Do you know which slide I'm referring to, sir?
I do, yeah.
Who initiated the discussion on the changes to that slide?
So that slide was changed probably 8 or 10 days ago.
Hanky.
Oh, it was changed 8 or 10 days ago.
Correct.
Were there any changes made from 8 or 10 days ago to what's now in your presentation?
Not beyond what we're talking
Oh,
about.
okay, so 10 days ago, those changes were made.
Whoop.
8 to 10
8 to 10.
days ago. I could actually probably figure out exactly when if you like.
Now my next questions go to Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess,
Oh my God, these aperture guys, this is so bad. This is so bad. I wish I had my soundboard right now, guys. These aperture expert witnesses. If this is what the Commonwealth is paying for, I'm very...
And again, this is day 21 of Karen Reed. Day 21 of Karen Reed. Let's get back into it.
concerned. I'm very concerned. And they're getting towards the end of their case. Oh boy. Oh boy, what did I walk into?
is a colleague.
I believe they can finish this case by Friday, but that's just me.
Yours at Aperture, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware of issues relating to the accuracy or inaccuracy of his CD?
Unfortunately, I've been bombarded with emails.
Yes,
that
you have.
referenced that. I've seen it. I have not read them.
You've you've been bombarded with them, but you have, and you say unfortunately, but you have not read any of them? None?
It's lying.
Maybe one or two lines. For example, they come in, they're looking like legitimate business emails, and then I pull it up as a business email, like, okay, I'm not supposed to do this. Court said I can't look at this.
Now, I want to go back to your slide presentation. I understand that you intend, subject to our objections at the court's ruling, you intend to present testimony with regard to your PowerPoint, where you are going to elaborate on your 1231.38 to 1231.43 trigger 1162.2, and you're going to add to what has been in your presentation a verbal discussion with regard to Mr. Burgess's change that he made in his May 8th report with regard to the variance time window. Do I have that correct?
No, you don't. It's not based upon a verbal discussion. It's based upon his report.
Okay, so you're going to make, what you're intending to do is you want to add the change from,
Listen, Karen is so confident in Alessi. You see that look? That is the unleash the Kraken look.
Mr. Burgess's May 8th report to what you're going to testify to on your PowerPoint. Do I have that correct?
That is correct.
And the only reason you're going to testify with regard to altering the 1231.38 to 1231.43 window is because of what Mr. Burgess has done on May 8th. Is that correct?
Oh.
It's better data, so I'm altering it and correcting it with better data that I've received from Mr. Burgess.
Right, but my point is, if it weren't for Mr. Burgess's change, you wouldn't be making any changes in your testimony, correct? It's only because of what Mr. Burgess did on May 8th. Is that correct?
Oh, you guys remember when Alessi was fired up about this particular witness? If we don't get crossed today and we get it tomorrow, tomorrow's gonna be fantastic. I might actually have to cancel my plans tomorrow just to make sure I'm here with you guys. This is gonna be an explosive cross with Alessi. Yes, we get the boring, dull, hanky day. It seems like that's what's happening today. But I am very behind, guys. But with an hour left of court time, if they're still on direct, then the cross is likely going to be tomorrow. Let's keep going.
Hey guys, John Starrett here in beautiful Pensacola, Florida. I'm here on behalf of one of my favorite tools in the kit, and that's Aldix. It is a housing system. It is a bladder, and
Then the cross is likely going to be tomorrow. Let's keep going.
Leave from his report, correct?
Right. So, and you understand, sir, that change has significant effects on the very issues in this case with regard to the timeline and the collision you allege occurred, and comparing it to human volitional conduct of Mr. O'Keefe with regard to his manipulation of the phone. You understand the consequences of that change, do you, sir?
I do. I would disagree with your assertion that it's consequential. Again, my original data, which is in my PowerPoint, has not changed. That data is still there. The timing was extremely close within the error of the measurements, which Mr. Burgess ultimately showed in his subsequent report that was within the variance associated with the timing question.
I understand, but my point, sir, and I want to understand if I have it correct, is that is going to move the time that you assert the 1162.2 trigger occurred, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that's a substantial change given the issues in this case when seconds matter, or do you think it's an insignificant change?
I wouldn't say it's insignificant. Again, I haven't modified my PowerPoint at all. I was happy with the data I had and satisfied with the data I had. Again, once presented as engineer would with better data, we use better data. It brings it closer in time to
Look at Alessi's face.
Whitman's last contact point.
Oh,
data.
shit. Oh, shit.
But even if we don't have that, given what I knew about the variance in the cell phones, my time was still within that window anyway.
Sir, you've just answered my question, which is you agree that it affects the timeline in the activity in Mr. Whitman's report. You said brings it closer. Did I have your words correctly?
Correct. What I was concerned about was your word about significant change. It brings it closer. It doesn't necessarily bring it significantly closer. My original timeline was very close, within the range of the accuracy of those types of cell phones entertainment system data. So even if I didn't have Mr. Burgess's subsequent report, the data is still within that time window.
Sir, isn't it a fact that with the variance of Mr. Burgess that you want to testify to, that there is a change? Because your 1162.2 trigger, 1231.38 to 1231.43, you know that there's a device lock event on the phone of Mr. O'Keefe after that time period. You understand that, correct?
So again, there's a window of plus minus on that. Technically, those timestamps on that are as you indicated. Again, that's literally, I wrote that on my slide. It includes my slide where I have that exact comment.
But my question, sir, is the change means now that with the Mr. Burgess variance moving, you now have part of the moving range that occurs after the device lock, whereas before your change, the device lock occurred after every bit of your range of 1162. Do I have that correct, don't I, sir?
You did.
Okay,
Thanks,
Your Honor, that's all I needed, thank you.
All right, so we're going to bring the jury in.
That's such BS. Bev, you should have let him go further on that. Bev, come on.
You're supposed to break it, okay?
All right, well, luckily, we have a tremendous amount of TiVo time, guys, so I'm going to skip through all of this. We can even skip through lunch.
Take on the coffee and donuts.
All right, here we go.
So we took up a lot of your time this morning. I think on the coffee and donuts and nothing, just a little bit of hints that we were taking longer than what you were down to do. We will appreciate the patience. So I have to ask you those questions. We all able to follow the instructions of the great company. Discussing this case with anyone since we met last week. Anyone say yes or no? We were also able to follow the instructions of the grant for doing any independent research or investigation into this case. Everyone say yes or no? Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about these cases conducted on? One, Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Your Honor.
So can I just say a question? Yes, sir. There's almost going to be able to get the court during the case that we're going to call the yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Brennan,
Thank you.
whenever you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, we're starting with your resume.
Please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name for the court reporter who's next to you.
Absolutely. My name is Judson Welcher. My first name is Judson. Last name is Welcher, Welcher.
Sir, what do you do for a profession?
I'm an accident reconstructionist and biomechanical engineer.
I'd like you to explain to us a little bit about what an accident reconstructionist does.
Sure, you can think of accident reconstruction, things such as this, as the physics and engineering that happens in car crashes. So accident reconstruction tends to deal with everything that happens to the car and outside the car, skid marks, vehicle damage, the electronic recording systems in the vehicle, things that have to do with the motion forces and how the physics of everything occurred and how that affected the motion of the vehicle.
You said that you were an accident reconstructionist, but also a biomechanical engineer. How is the work of a biomechanical engineer different than an accident reconstructionist?
Simply, I think of biomechanics as similar, but to everything inside the car. So biomechanics is looking at how the effects of physical forces are applied to the human anatomy. When I'm trying to explain to somebody what I do, I say, hey, it's like a civil engineer who's designing a bridge. So many trucks and cars on the bridge. Are that going to cause the beams in the bridge to fail? Is that going to cause the cables to fail? So a human body is governed by the same laws of physics, just like the bridge. Obviously, it's made of a lot of different materials, but in a human body, my beams are bones. My cables are the muscles and ligaments. Different material properties, but everything's governed by the laws of physics and principles of engineering. So I'm looking at how physical forces, the outside of the car, when people are inside the car, seatbelts, airbags. The first seatbelt was patented by an engineer. It's engineers who quantify the force of the crash and what kind of injury, damage there is to the body. So it is force that causes damage like a fracture. So we're looking at how the physical forces are applied to the body and what that means in terms of what happens to the body.
Dr. Welcher, I want to ask you a little bit about how you became a biomechanical engineer and an accident reconstructionist. Tell us.
Sure. So when I was getting ready to go to college, my father, who was a physician, said, whatever you do, do not go to medical school. Because I was getting ready to go to medical school.
Okay.
This was
Why do we care? Why do we
years
care?
ago, I believe.
We don't care.
We don't care.
The jury
He
doesn't
said
care.
it's just not worth it. So I said, okay. So then I.
Did somebody object to relevance?
I grew
Who cares?
up riding motorcycles, taking things apart,
Why?
frequently pissing my parents off when I couldn't put it back together.
Why are you telling us this?
But I like taking things apart and figuring out
Oh
how
my
things
God.
work.
Sir, we
So
don't
I
care.
went to university and got my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering.
Whoop-de-doo.
From there, I happened to be at a Thursday meeting of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. A group came in from a company that did this type of work, and they showed some examples of how you apply engineering concepts that you learn in mechanical engineering to the human body. So I'm like, man, that's a great job. That's the perfect mix of engineering that I have and my desire,
Do
to
we
learn the
care?
medical side of things as well, without becoming a doctor. So I talked to them. I actually applied to the company and was ultimately hired as a biomechanical engineer.
How long did you continue as a biomechanical engineer until you went back to school?
So I actually, very quickly after I started the job, I took a human anatomy class at community college. I quickly realized that wasn't enough. And so in around 1993, I went to the USC Medical School and enrolled. It was called concurrent enrollment, which means you can take the class, but you're not actually in medical school. It's a medical school class. But I took gross human anatomy. So it was me and 160 or so other doctors. I took the same human anatomy that first year medical students at USC took. So it began in 1993.
This is so irrelevant.
Continue to work as you went through your higher education?
I ultimately started my own company, continued to work, continued to do research, and wonderful opportunity to have two beautiful children, and continue to this day.
Tell us a little bit about the company you started and when.
Sure. So in about October of 1994, I started my own company. Me and the guy who was my immediate supervisor said, hey, we can do this better. We can do more research, more testing. And so we started our own company.
What kind of company was it?
And it was an action reconstruction and biomechanical engineering company. We also early on did a lot of testing and design work for amusement parks. The same concepts for car crashes applies to roller coasters.
Amusement park rides?
What?
Oh, I wish I had my soundboard.
Basically anything. So we worked and had some contracts on improving ride safety. And I was also on the ASTM committee that looked at amusement park ride designs.
Did that company grow from 2 people?
Correct. We took it from 2 to about 25 people, and then we ultimately sold it in right around January 1st of 2022.
Before 2022, did you obtain a master's degree?
I did.
And what was that in and where was that from?
So again, I was working full time. Actually, while I was doing my master's degree, I was also teaching classes at Texas A&M through their law enforcement training division. So it was teaching classes. But I ultimately completed my master's thesis in December of 2001. That was from USC, University of Southern California, and I received my master's degree in biomedical engineering. I wrote my thesis. It was basically on automotive seat design, but it was titled Whiplash-Associated Disorders, Related Anatomy, Biomechanics of Injury, and the Relationship Between Injury Potential and Automotive Seat Design.
Sure. Dr. Welcher asked me if you could refer to his resume, and I said yes. So you read it.
And it's a resume, not a report.
Your resume, the resume.
No, you did. He said report.
Yeah, no, it's his resume.
Oh, God, calm down.
You share with us that your company continued to grow until you ultimately sold it in 2022. During that time, did you continue to pursue higher education after you obtained your master's degree?
I did. So, again, ever since 1993, I've been slowly pursuing higher education, both obtaining my master's degree as well as my PhD. During that time frame, I also published 20 peer-reviewed scientific publications. I taught for 5 years at Texas A&M and served as a peer reviewer for both the Society of Automotive Engineers and for a short period on the Archives of Physical Medicine. So I was...
Say hello to DJI Mic Mini, the smallest mic ever made.
Truly one of a kind.
Yeah, you could say that. Enjoy premium specs and features in a compact size.
So I was working and running a company with my co-creator, as well as teaching, conducting research, publishing, also while going to school part-time.
Take us to 2011. Were you still pursuing education at the University of Southern California?
I was.
What occurred? What did you achieve in 2011?
So in August of 2011, I finally obtained my PhD in biomedical engineering. I wrote my dissertation, reading from my resume, titled Development, Validation, and Testing of a New Sensor Array for Intra-Articular Pressure Measurement, In Vitro Human Lumbar Spine, Intra-Articular Ascent Testing, which is a lot of big words to say. I was testing cadaver spines, looking at the loads inside the spines associated with various motions of the spines.
Did you achieve your PhD in biomechanical engineering?
It's actually in biomedical engineering. Biomechanics is within the field of biomedical engineering.
So you have a PhD in biomedical engineering?
Correct.
You mentioned that you have published many articles. Have there been articles that you have published that are relevant to some of the subjects that you're going to talk about during your testimony?
I mean, I have a number of, again, peer-reviewed scientific publications. Peer review just means you submit it to a journal and they have other people review it, give you comments, your peers in the field. I do believe there are a number of them that could certainly be relevant to both the physics and, for example, pedestrian injuries.
If I could mention a few. You wrote an article on sideswipe collision dynamics. What's sideswipe collision dynamics?
So I was actually an invited speaker at the World Congress, or sorry, not the World Congress, the World Reconstruction Expedition. They asked me to give a presentation on the theory, science, and mathematics behind sideswipe or side impact collisions. That would include side collisions, glancing collisions, shallow angle impacts such as like a corner of a bumper goes into the side of a car, any kind of glancing or clipping type impact.
Similarly, many of the articles that you wrote is one of them about methods for quantifying the impact severity of low-speed side impacts at varying angles.
So that was a Society of Automotive Engineers paper, again, another peer-reviewed paper that we worked on. It was kind of an extension or continuation of all that research, where we just looked at the physics and the mathematics, basically the reconstruction of glancing or sideswipe type impacts.
Similarly, methods for quantifying the impact severity of low-speed side impacts at varying angles. Is that similar to the other papers, or is that different?
Yeah, I thought that was the same one.
If I can continue, another article or publication that you wrote, occupant kinematics and loading in low-speed lateral impacts. What does that mean?
So, in the course of my career, I've done probably 12 to maybe 1,300 actual crash tests. I crashed everything from skateboards, mopeds, up to trains, motorhomes, and ambulances. I've conducted, relative to this case, probably been involved with 50 to maybe 70 pedestrian impact tests. So the low speed side impact one is we actually put human volunteers in side impact collisions. And what we did is we had accelerometers, which are things that measure acceleration. You had physics remembering Newton's mass times acceleration. So knowing the acceleration of something, you can get an idea of how much force is applied.
Dude, just give us the
We have
meat and
various sensors on the
potatoes.
body. We have various sensors on the car for the reconstruction aspects of it. So that study was the biomechanics portion, and the first paper was about the reconstruction portion. So the first paper you discussed was everything outside the car. Then we looked at how the forces applied to those impacts to people inside the car.
Have you had a lot of publications and studies about the force applied to people outside of a car?
I don't know if I'd say a lot, but I was an invited lecturer to the Accident Reconstruction and Collision Safety Institute conference, where I specifically gave a paper and a series, or basically a lecture on what's called pedestrian impact biomechanics, which was exactly as the name implies. What happens to pedestrians when they're impacted predominantly by cars and vehicles.
How much of your work involves pedestrian impacts?
Probably maybe 10%, 5 to 10%. Most of it's car to cars.
Biomechanics of low-speed impacts. Is that another paper that you wrote?
That is a paper I wrote.
I don't want to read all of your papers and all of your publications, but on a different topic, did you write a paper on the study of the measurement of Generation 2 Toyota event data recorders and low-speed side impacts?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what measurement of event data means?
So, Toyotas, newer Toyotas particularly, have two types of electronic equipment on board that can record crashes. There is what's referred to as an event data recorder, or EDR. It's somewhat commonly referred to as a black box. It's not exactly right, but it's close. And then there's a secondary system which is really more closely tied to maintenance. That's called TechStream, but it will pick up data that you can frequently relate back to various events. So that particular paper was looking at the event data recorder data in Toyotas.
We'll get more into that subject later, but is event data recorders subject that you are well schooled at?
Yes.
In addition to the papers that you've written, have you continued through the years in actually becoming a PhD or research in this area, in these areas?
Correct. For example, every year we're part of a conference called SATI, which is our company, largely led by the engineer Christopher Furbish, so we work with, has spearheaded us going out and conducting crash tests for that conference. For 10 years, we did a lot of the instrumentation and crash testing at the Axle Reconstruction and Collision Safety Institute conference. And then for a number of years, the company actually went down and did crash testing, what's referred to as the Spine Research Institute down in San Diego. So we've been hired by various professional organizations. We came out here once, the Massachusetts Association of Axle Reconstructionists, I think I'm messing the name up, at a conference. We came out here and conducted crash tests for training other experts out here. We did all the instrumentation, the biomechanics of that crash testing.
In your research and testing, you have pages with dates of the different researches and testing you've done. There's over a dozen of the research and testing items and articles that deal with pedestrians. Is that a common topic in your research and testing?
Yes. So again, pedestrian tests. The last Axle Reconstruction Collision Safety Institute conference, there was a series of pedestrian crash tests from there. SATI 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, some pedestrian crash tests that were done there as well. So there are a number of instances on my resume where I both attended class, and then I mentioned the one time where I gave an hour and a half long lecture on pedestrian injuries.
After you became a PhD or a doctor, did you continue your education and research?
Correct. I've always continued my education and research up until, I just got back from the event data or Axle Reconstruction Collision Safety Institute EDR conference, or the Event Data Recorder Summit. My company, through my relationship with the founder of that summit, was a sponsor. So Aperture was actually a sponsor of that conference. We actually sponsored it the previous year as well. And also as part of that, I assisted one of the researchers in conducting, it's called front camera module testing for pedestrian impacts on Chrysler vehicles. General Motors vehicles.
As a biomedical engineer, are there any groups, organizations, or certifications that are important?
I think ACTAR is important. So ACTAR is an acronym, it's ACTAR, and that's short for the Accreditation Commission for Traffic Accident Reconstructionists. And so it's a bunch of professional groups, originally from some concerns, I believe, from the Department of Transportation, got together and set standards for reconstructionists. Again, these are kind of...
Oh, my bad, y'all. Hold on.
These are kind of minimum standards you have to show, you send in your resume, talk to them about your research, and then if you're deemed qualified, you sit for an examination that tests your skills. Day-long test, theory, a practical portion, and then every 5 years you have to have 60 continuing education units, become reaccredited. I've been an accredited Axle Reconstructionist since February of 1995, and my accreditation is current and active up through today.
So you've been accredited for 30 years?
Yeah, correct.
No, I tricked you on the back.
No, I never thought about it, but yeah, I guess it has been 30 years.
Have you testified in court before?
I have.
Have you testified in state court?
I have.
Have you testified in federal court?
I have. Matter of fact, in Boston.
Have you ever testified in civil cases?
Yes, I have.
Have you testified being called by the plaintiff?
I have.
Have you ever testified being called by a defendant in a civil case?
Yes.
Have you testified in criminal cases?
I have.
Have you ever been called by the state or the government?
Yes.
Have you ever been called by a defendant?
Correct. Public Defender's Office.
In any of the cases, whether it's civil, criminal, plaintiff, defendant, government defendant, does that in any way change your analysis about data regardless of who or where you testify?
No. I'd say my job is to be a critical analysis of the data. So I wanted to look at the data as objectively as possible and form conclusions based upon the data trying to remove wherever possible speculation, try to remove wherever possible reference to testimony. Now, sometimes testimony is the only thing we have, and so we need to rely on it for bits and pieces. But generally, my job is to try and look at data and see what the data shows. I have no dog in this fight. I don't, quite frankly, care. What I'm doing is trying to do a good engineering job, which is looking at the data and drawing sound principles and sound
All right,
conclusions.
enough then. Let's go. Come on.
Presently, you said you had a company and you sold it. Where do you work?
It's a company called Aperture. I guess we were acquired or merged into it technically.
How many offices do you know Aperture has?
Oh God, I should know that.
Hi, I'm Kimber, owner of Water Bear Photography, and today I would like to introduce you to Optex's lines of underwater skins.
I mean, we have them in Massachusetts. We have them in, I think there's 3 or 4 in Texas. There's, I think, 4 or 5 in California. So I want to say there's at least, I don't know, 13, 15.
Do you work in a particular location?
I do.
Where do you work?
Palm Beach, California.
Do you work with other people? Do you have a team?
I do.
How many people are on your team?
5.
And what's the team comprised of?
It,
Is everybody a PhD and engineer?
one individual is a PhD in engineering, Dr. Umali, and then I have 3 other engineers and 1 case reader. I guess it's
Not
just
a waste of
manager as well.
time.
Is there any, do you work interchangeably in the different branches around the country, or do you have your own team in California that you work with?
99% of the time, it's my own team. Occasionally, we'll get a case for another office. I've worked on a couple cases out of the Texas office, and maybe a couple out of the Nevada office.
Were you asked to look at any data or information relative to this case?
Yes.
In looking at data and information, do you try to look at a narrow or broad range of information?
So I definitely cast a very broad range. We try and get as much information as possible, and then weed it down to what is important, weed it down to what is consistent with the data. So you start off very big, and then get down to sort of the meat and potatoes of it, the important information.
Do you necessarily rely on everything you look at?
No, I certainly consider everything I look at, but I frequently don't rely on everything because sometimes it's not reliable or it's irrelevant.
In this case, can you share with us materials generally that you looked at?
Sure.
All right, show us the report. What do you have?
So this reporter, I apologize for the length of this. So I have police reports, including the Canton PD incident report, and I have 8 other reports, also the 34 Fairview Road Rams final report, or cars report. I have the ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's residence, I believe that's Wet Meadows. I have the cruiser cameras, which are the police vehicles, onboard cameras, both front and rear cameras from I believe 10 different videos. I have photos and videos of the scene from Sergeant. I have photos of the vehicles, 140 photographs of the vehicles lined up together. I have 25 additional photographs of the scene, 18 separate photographs of the scene, 2 photographs of the scene, 1 group of 92 of the scene, 1 group of 50 of the scene, another video showing the cars lined up bumper to bumper, 4 videos of the scene. I have a video showing Mr. Reed's vehicle being pulled into the Sallyport in the Canton Police Department. I have a 360 diagram, surveillance video files from McCarthy's, surveillance video files from Waterfall Bar, Canton Police Sports Sallyport videos from Dighton. I have Lexus Connect Verizon records. I have the alarm.com videos. I have a video of a tow truck arriving at the Canton Police Department. One titled Native Location John Keefe's phone. Past witness statements. The report of examination from the coroner. Jennifer McCabe's cell-right data. Something called Lexus Infotainment. Different past summary testimony of numerous witnesses.
Oh
my God, did he just say something called Lexus Info? Is that not what his colleagues sat on this stand talking about last week?
You can't make it up.
The shenanigans have begun.
Earlier summary testimony of numerous witnesses. The Boston interview, Boston Magazine interview with Miss Reed, a Dateline interview with Miss Reed, a 2020 interview with Miss Reed.
Why do you need to look at that?
Lab reports from BODE, Crime Scene Response Unit, Boston, Crime Scene Service Section, Maynard, Crime Scene Service Section, Southeast, Criminalist File Folder, Trace File Folder, UC Davis Veterinary Report. I have Verizon records, GPS location records, John O'Keefe GPS points, Axiom cache location, weather reports, medical records, including the Fire Department run report for both Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, medical records.
Alright, what's up everybody?
Come on.
We have these fun little pastries right here, and we are gonna review them.
Hey guys, I'm headed out to the park to make something real.
Department run report for both Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, medical records for both Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed from Good Samaritan. I have 2 retrograde extrapolation reports, one, and a serum plasma conversion report relative to Ms. Reed. I have the neuropathology report.
Wow.
I have the Orange County Medical Examiner's report, the diagrams, the postmortem toxicology report, and a second same autopsy report on paper.
We've seen all of that.
To the information that you reviewed, did you on your own no longer obtain information that you thought might be helpful for your review?
I did. So first what happened is I asked for all the information on the case. So I received some information, and then what we do, we start doing our homework. So we start doing the groundwork. So once I received some of the information, what I did was, modern cars have what's called a VIN number or vehicle identification number. It's a unique 17-digit number. So what we'll do is we'll decode that VIN number, and that gives us information about the vehicles. So I did that for Ms. Reed's 2021 Lexus, as well as Mr. O'Keefe's 2019 Chevy Traverse. So ran the VIN numbers, used the VIN numbers, it tells us year, make, model, safety equipment, things like that. I then got dimensional data from a program called Expert AutoStats, and then I have complete parts diagrams for the vehicles. So I have literally bumper-to-bumper parts diagrams from something called the Mitchell Collision Estimating Guide, and what that is, it shows parts involved in the vehicle. So for example, in Ms. Reed's vehicle, I have bumper-to-bumper, I certainly have all the parts around the rear bumper and tail light of her vehicle. And then of course I started additional work on top of that.
After you began your study, sir, did you have an opportunity to personally look at items that were involved in this case?
Yes, I did.
What did that include?
That included looking at Ms. Reed's vehicle, looking at Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, going to the scene of the incident. I ultimately purchased a 2021 LX 570, the exact year, make, and model of Ms. Reed's vehicle, and conducted testing with that vehicle, as well as doing a whole bunch of research and compiling data for my report and slides.
You mentioned slides. When you went through your investigation, analysis, and ultimately led to whatever conclusions you have, did you provide and create a PowerPoint presentation that could assist you?
I did. I provided a PowerPoint presentation on January 30th.
Yeah, Coach Ron?
Yes.
He indeed bought a car to test as well.
Sir, can you a binder? Finally take a look at it. So does that appear to be a copy of the PowerPoint presentation?
The binder, the
140
whole,
pages, didn't look at every page, but it looks right.
the whole binder.
That's markers for identification.
Oh my God.
With the court's permission, I'd like to have Dr. Welcher use his PowerPoint presentation to walk us through some of the information you'd like to share today.
No objections.
Your Honor, I'm looking at paper version.
Okay, is the paper version the same as what we're going to see up here?
It is.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Dr. Welch is going to manage the PowerPoint presentation. Sir, you mentioned that you wanted to look at the area, look at the scene. Your office is in California.
It is.
Why was it important to come all the way out to this area to see the scene firsthand? I'll let you set up before I start asking more questions.
The thing is so slow.
No.
Okay.
So that's me. That's my first slide.
I have a couple questions for you, Dr. Welch.
Please.
The first is, your office is in California.
Oh, yes, sir.
Why was it important to come all the way out here and view the scene firsthand?
And you want to have as much information as possible. So I wanted to, physically look at all the things so I can actually see with my own hands, my own eyes, lay hands upon it, look at it as best I can. You try and inspect and look at as many things as you possibly can. Sometimes they don't exist anymore, sometimes they're gone, and you have to make the best approximation if you can't do that. In this case, I was able to look at the scene and both vehicles.
Was that an important part of your study, Doctor?
I think so. Again, it's always good if you're going to talk about what happened to the cars or what happened to the people to look at what happened to the cars. Meaning to actually look at the cars, not just look at photographs when possible. So I have physically looked at the cars. For example, on the Lexus, I climbed in it, over it, underneath it. I downloaded data from it. I did a whole bunch of things looking at Mr. Reed's Lexus to assist in my analysis to try and add some further objective data to what we're doing here. So same thing with Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. Looked at the rear bumper, took some pieces off the rear bumper to see what was behind the cover, to see what kind of damage we did or didn't have. So went to the scene, looked at the measurements of the curb, looked at where some of the lines are on the road, because you can see them in some of the photographs. Again, it's always good when possible to inspect everything you can inspect.
If you can now begin and tell us how you started your investigation.
Sure. So on September 23rd, I had an opportunity to come out. My name is Brennan. It was the first time I ever met you on that day, I believe. And I had received material before that.
Oh, Jesus.
And what you see here is
Really
this is my
good.
inspection of Miss Reed's vehicle. In the upper left photograph, you'll see, this doesn't work very well.
In 2024,
Upper left photograph. That's
Come on,
Miss Reed's
man.
vehicle. That's Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle, the Chevy Traverse. And
Is he laying on the floor on the top right-hand corner? Yes, he is.
And then what you see here is a laser scanner. You can see it on the ground here. Laser scanner is creating a 3D model of the vehicles.
Pathetic.
So I use that to create a 3D model of the vehicles. You can see me in the upper right photograph. That watch is this watch right here, my Garmin watch. And what I'm doing is looking at the construction, composition of that right rear corner of the bumper. I'm looking at things such as the dimensions, where various lights and components are, and how does the geometry of that bumper relate to things that would be hit when backed into.
Dr. Welcher knows this is 9/23/94. Is that accurate data when you first started looking at the vehicles in the area?
You said 24, correct?
I did.
You said 9/23/24, correct. And then on the slide, what I tried to do is underline what I'm doing. So this is inspection of the Reed Lexus, and as noted, I'm only showing you a couple. I actually took 445 photographs.
Do you remember when you began this case? The month of the date?
No, it was obviously before this. I had material before I came out to look at the vehicles.
You think it was months before this?
I don't think it was months. No, it was maybe 8 months, if not less.
So you began your work in the fall of 2024?
Correct.
I just want to ask you about the picture in the middle. You see the right tail light housing is missing? Did you understand that had been removed prior to looking at the car?
It was, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. However, some of the evidence stickers, these white stickers here, were still on the vehicle.
You did not place those. Did you place those stickers on yourself?
I did not.
Were they there when you first saw the car?
Correct. They match what I'd seen in other photos.
Thank you.
So just continuing on, so what you see is, again, I mentioned looking underneath the bumper. So we wanted to see what, if anything, was damaged on the corner. So I'm putting my hand to show where the frame rail ends. This is me looking up underneath the backside of this taillight. If you can see, this red taillight actually sticks out. And so I'm checking the front here for damage, I'm checking the back for damage.
1 second, please. Doctor, when you looked at the damage on the previous slide, did you find any damage to that?
Will be
wall?
done soon, y'all.
No, there was no damage to the taillight.
The middle picture is from the inside, looking at the inside of that taillight. Was there any damage to the inside of that taillight?
There was not.
Thank you.
So again, look at the height of it. I mentioned this lower taillight. Notice how the structure of the bumper protrudes out. You can see one of the marks, which is consistent with the contact. Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle here in this scratch mark, scuff mark. Notice how close it is to this light. Get some of the evidence, stickers. There's a better view. So with all that information, I mentioned a laser scan. So you move this laser scanner, and each minute 51 second scan is collecting about 50 million data points. And so you scan all the way around, and then what you do is you merge all that data together. So even though this looks like a poor photograph, what you're seeing is hundreds of millions of photographs. And so you literally can figure out, if you want to know the distance from this lug nut to where the lighter is on the ashtray, you could probably do that to an accuracy of about 2 to 3 millimeters. So really taking tons and tons of data. So it knows the exact position of every one of these millions of data points, and it knows the color associated with those data points.
Why is that data imaging so important in accident reconstruction?
You want to have an accurate model of the car. So, I mean, you probably don't need literally that many points to get an accurate model, but that's just the nature of the way the science is going. Computers are getting better and faster. Scanners are getting faster. So you get an enormous amount of data when you use these scanners nowadays. So then, as indicated on the underline here, I did a CDR. That's a little different than what you heard me say before. CDR is crash data retrieval. So that's the hardware and software that you use to download or actually copy or take an image of, which you're just taking an image off what's on the vehicle, the EDR, which is the event data recorder. So you use the crash data retrieval hardware to download the event data recorder, otherwise commonly known as a black box. So I downloaded the black box from this vehicle, and although you can hardly read it here, again, I mentioned there are 2 systems on this vehicle. This is the CDR system or EDR system. There's also the TechStream, the EDR system. This system is primarily to manage the safety components, protect the occupants of the Lexus. So things like fire the airbag, fire what's called a pretensioner, keep track of the severity of the crash to decide whether we need to fire the airbag. So it's not really designed for pedestrian impacts. So when we downloaded this vehicle, we got what's called a none file. A none file simply means that there's no data there. The system's working properly, we had no fault codes, but for a car hitting a pedestrian to cause a file here, this is really more designed for car-to-car impacts, something that's going to have a significant impact on the occupant of the Lexus. Again, the Lexus is 6,000 pound vehicle. Mr. O'Keefe's only 216 pounds. So it's not going to register for hitting a pedestrian.
Were you surprised that there was no information about a collision in the EDR?
No, exactly what I expected. Okay, I mentioned the second system. So as underlined up here, this is the TechStream. So this is from Toyota TechStream data. You can see the screens here. There.
Let me show you guys what I have in the back of the truck here. It's my drawer system made by DECT. I love this thing. I've come to rely on it heavily. Currently, I've just got some random outdoor gear, my total box, a Yeti blanket, a canopy.
There's generally 2 types of files. What's called a vehicle control history and a PCS file. The PCS file is...
Honestly, I don't think Hank realizes what he gets these people to say sometimes. So for example, he goes, so looking at the data from this alleged black box, was there anything reported that there was a pedestrian accident? And he said, no, there was no collision reported. You guys know, this is why I'm always here taking notes from you. What is the first thing that Alan Jackson said to this jury in opening statements? There was no collision. Hank, you just had your star expert say the same thing, silly.
Just a
You can't make this up.
You can't.
I also looked at Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. Sorry, PCS's pre-collision system. Looked at Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. Same thing. Took a series of photographs. Laser scanned it. Looked in it, underneath it, behind it. I mentioned taking some of the bumper parts off. So I took this rear cover off here to look at the damage behind the bumper cover. Most car techs refer to as a face bar. That's that piece of metal that you see here. And there's a piece of energy absorber here. That's your face bar. So I'm looking to see if there's any damage to that. There was no damage to that.
Before you go forward, I want you to take a couple steps back because I want to ask you some questions to explain Techstream data. Can you go back a couple slides, please?
Sure.
You mentioned that in the EDR, which is similar to a black box, there was no information found. And then you mentioned a different system than Techstream. Can you make it clear for us how these systems are different and where they're stored on a...
Sure. I mean, a lot of data stored in a similar location. The Techstream system was originally designed, according to Toyota, for maintenance issues. It seemed to come about around the same time Toyota was having problems with sudden accelerations or allegations of sudden accelerations. So the Techstream data or vehicle control history will give you information when there's, for example, excessive acceleration or rapid shifting of the vehicles or rapid steering of the steering wheel. So the statements are that that's designed to help the maintenance people, if you come in with a problem with your vehicle, to diagnose what that problem is. It has a lot of utility in accident reconstruction because if you jam on the brakes before a crash, frequently the Techstream data will record the crash.
You mentioned Toyota a number of times. Can you share with us the relationship between Toyota and Lexus?
Sorry, in my mind they're the same thing. Toyota and Lexus obviously a little different, but Lexus is basically made by Toyota. So Toyota and Lexus has the Lexus safety system, Toyota has the Toyota safety systems, which you both read with the Techstream data.
The Techstream data, in this case, does it play an important role in your analysis?
I think so, yes.
The Techstream data, did you independently download that data yourself?
So I independently downloaded it, and then I also ran a test with Mr. Eads' vehicle, and I created a new Techstream file so that I had a stamp in the ignition cycles of what the current ignition cycle was. So I did a sudden acceleration test of the vehicle.
On the Lexus or on the exemplar vehicle?
On her Lexus.
When you did the downloading, why did you do it yourself?
Again, you, whenever possible, want to be the one that does it, make sure it's done correctly, and be able to say, hey, how do I know that's from that vehicle? Well, I know because I was the one who did it. And so if I get it from someone else, then they frequently have to bring that person into court to say the other ones that did it so that I can use it. So if I do it myself, it eliminates that problem, and then I have no concerns over where it's coming from. So then I know it's, hey, I did it, this is the right car, this is the right program.
You left us at slide 10 when you were inspecting Mr. O'Keefe's car?
Correct. So again, simply a blue arrow indicating that I looked down behind all this stuff, took measurements of it, and then similarly I have a 3D point cloud of Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. So part of the reason we're making these 3D point clouds, and we'll touch on this further, in addition to the scene, you can then basically put all these things back together in the computer. So instead of having to drive the cars to the scene, for example, or to Mr. O'Keefe's residence, you can take these computer models and additional data and put it back in the computer and reconstruct everything on the computer. So before we had the exact angle of impact, again, this is for looking at when Ms. Reed contacted Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle backing out of Mr. O'Keefe's garage at White Meadows. I lined them up just to generally show the approximate location. A couple things. Notice how, again, this lower portion of the Lexus bumper sticks out.
Come on.
Established 1996.
There we go.
Notice how the side of the Chevrolet slopes in as you get higher up. So this portion sticks out more than this portion. And this is where you would expect any compact damage to occur, assuming there wasn't injury. So, again, looking at the measurements of the height of the vehicle, of course, as you indicated, Mr. Brand, the taillight's gone. And then went to the scene. So, same thing, went to the scene, took, again, 297 photographs of the scene, had our people scan it to create a
Okay. I have so many problems with this, guys. I miss Joe. I was on the plane. I was just like itching the stream. So he took scans of things, right? And
This
lined
dude
these cars up.
sucks.
And do you see where he's going with this? Oh, the tail light is too high for it to have caused this impact. Oh, I miss my soundboard so bad right now. Oh my God. Alessi is going to chew him up and spit him out.
computer model of the scene. So, literally, if you want to know the distance from
Computer
this
model
window to, say, some manhole cover on the road, we have the data.
Why do we need that?
To a couple millimeters.
Yeah,
In
why?
addition to going to the scene and
Why do we need
digital
this?
mapping, you mentioned other review of materials. You have an opportunity to review dash cam footage from Canton Police Department, police vehicles to see the general location of where Mr. O'Keefe was when first responders were assisting.
So that's what you asked me.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the TechStream download. So this is a screenshot of the TechStream download. Keep in mind, this is kind of maintenance software. So we're looking at a number of things in the maintenance software. What we see is, and this is noted in the report too, that when the vehicle gets into the Canton Police Department after this event, you can see the mileage is 12,665 miles. So that shows up in Trooper Paul's report. It shows up in the photographs.
Trooper Paul.
And it shows up as matching the mileage in the TechStream data, both at triggers 1164 and triggers 1167.
I ask you if you can enlarge the data on the right and break down what it actually means, different columns. Is it possible for you to enlarge that?
Oh no. Bore us with more details that are not relevant. Keep going.
My fingers are too fat.
Your fingers are too fat.
Okay. So what you're looking at is what I call event 1162. If you see anything in blue on these charts, that's information that I added. I typically put my initial, JBW, Vincent Blair Welcher, that's me. And so this is referred to as the key cycle trip. So key cycle is simply you turn it on, not necessarily turn the ignition on, turn on, turn off. That's one key cycle. So I labeled this one 1162-2 because there's also one that's on the same key cycle that I'm calling 1162-1. The system also records the mileage. So again, this is a maintenance system generally. So what you see is the T here is the trigger, and there's a point. So this time in the TechStream data, you can think of it as like a stopwatch. It's when it starts when the car turns on and stops when the car turns off. And then if it sees a triggering event, a T, it records that information. So this is when the trigger happened. So that's 1,142.2 seconds. So I converted that to minutes and seconds, because most people don't think it's seconds. And so what it also does is, once it sees a trigger, it's constantly circulating data through the computer. So when it says, okay, we have a trigger, it saves 5 seconds before the trigger, and then 5 seconds after the trigger. So the trigger's in the middle, and you have 5 seconds of data before, and 5 seconds of data after.
What does that mean?
Questions, Mr. Welcher. First, starting with the clock, the time in seconds on the left. You mentioned that begins when the car is turned on. What type of clock is that called?
It's just a continuous clock, meaning it's not a clock like a time clock, it's more like a stopwatch kind of clock.
Has it ever been referred to as a running clock?
The same thing. That you start the stopwatch as running.
Based on the TechStream data alone, found in that one spot, can you tell from the data in the TechStream alone what time the power was turned on?
No, not alone. It simply tells you how long it's been on. It doesn't necessarily immediately tie it back to a clock time. You need additional information.
And so this in and of itself, the text stream data doesn't give you a certain time on a clock, like 1 o'clock or 2:30, anything like that.
No, it simply tells you in this case when the trigger occurred, it's been on for 19 minutes and 2 seconds.
Are they just trying to maximize the inventory? Yes, we know that.
Maximize the inventory. It's
They're not even sugarcoating it anymore.
because if they sugarcoat it, then you'd probably look like this. So I would check the campaign types because search should match up.
Tells you in this case when the trigger occurred, it's been on for 19 minutes and 2 seconds.
You also mentioned that there's a 10-second window of information that's captures 5 seconds before the T and 5 seconds after the T, the triggering event?
Correct.
Sustained estimate.
That window of 10 seconds, what happens if that doesn't capture the entire event? What does something before or after? What does the text stream data do?
So it depends on what the something is. So if there's another trigger, then it will record more data. So you can have
That don't mean
you can
anything.
have 2 triggers that are recording things on the same time window as well, or very close to the same kind of window. So you need another trigger to keep it going. But in essence, what it does is when it sees a trigger, it saves that 10-second window and then just keeps monitoring things until it sees another trigger.
If the data captures a trigger, it has a 10-second window, and an event continues past that 10 seconds, or past the 5 seconds on either side, and there's no further trigger, do you get any other information from the text stream data?
No, for example, in the trigger event, and say 5 seconds later the vehicle's still moving, well, the data just ends. And it says it's going, 17 miles an hour, for example. It doesn't continue on. We just know that when the trigger ended, it was going 17 miles an hour.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so we have mileage recorded in this system. So what we're trying to do is use the available data to see if we can determine what event this is, or is this the event, or is this something that could have occurred outside 34 Fairview on the evening of this event. And so one of the things we're utilizing is the mileage. Okay, so 12629 is at the end of event number 2 on the 1162 ignition cycle. When the vehicle ultimately comes into the impound yard, and this is actually before that, it comes into the impound yard, it has 12,665 miles. That's a difference in the math for you here of 36 miles. Okay, let's consider where that could have come from. So we looked at the various paths and descriptions of where Ms. Reed's Lexus was driven after leaving 34 Fairview on the night of this event.
Oh, no.
The time, when and time the vehicle ended up at the Canton Police Department. So we used Google Maps.
Oh my God.
Adjusted for the correct date and time of the year.
Oh my God.
And then what you'll also see is we adjusted for the correct time of day. So
Jesus.
literally you can
This is terrible. This is terrible. Fat fingers. We know. The fingers are too big. This is bad.
So you can see that's looking at the mileage and time. Again, really didn't use the time, just used the mileage on Saturday, January 29th at around 12 a.m. And of course, does not take into account the weather.
And what are the addresses? It's hard to see on the top from where to where.
God, you know what this is? You know what he did? This is like going to Waze to figure out how long it's going to take you to get somewhere. Like, that's what he's doing. This is what he did. This is the Commonwealth's expert witness, their star witness that everybody's been fighting about. We thought we were done with Burgess. I know it's boring, but from what I've seen so far, I've got a lot of notes on this. This is probably worse. Oh, yeah, I gotta cancel my plans tomorrow for a lesson on cross. Oh my God. I'm already finding problems.
So this is from
So many
34
problems.
Fairview to 1 Meadows Avenue, which is Mr. O'Keefe.
Google directions.
And there are other
Idiot.
Correct. So we basically ran through the
Idiot.
entire path as we understood it. Again, we didn't have complete information. We didn't know the exact roads. We did
Wow.
turned around and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh.
you're seeing the suggested available paths, and we end up with a range of data.
Oh
So
my
we
God.
go through all the paths, and you can see that this is what we end up at the bottom here. So it's very hard to see.
Bad
So
eyes,
the
fat
minimum suggested round is
fingers.
36 miles, 36.1.
Suggested.
You have a range of 37.9 to 39.7, but again, that's right in the range of the 36 miles. So that's a data point that's starting to build our confidence in what is in the text stream data being related to our event.
This is all an effort to match whether or not the 1162 data is relevant to a particular event. Let me ask it this way. Matching all the distances by miles. Is this the only way you're trying to determine whether 1162 is the event in front of 34 Pearson Road?
No. So again, these things are all tools. You can't take necessarily one data point in a vacuum. You need to consider the totality of the data. Which is what I did. So we mentioned the continuous clock that was in there, or the running clock that was in the vehicle. So what you see over here,
Can you
I
highlight
mentioned,
that for us, Dr.
I am doing that right now. You can see we have the time, and again, I've converted in blue to minutes and seconds. This is the first trigger on that key cycle. So on key cycle 1162, there was two separate events. The vehicle keeps a continuously running clock. So we're able to see the time each event occurred relative to when the vehicle was started, and the difference between the two events. Okay, so at trigger event 1162-1, we know that the ignition has been on between 10 minutes and 57.4 seconds. Or that's when the trigger is, sorry, 10 minutes, 57.4 seconds. Again, the trigger has plus or minus. So that's from 10 minutes, 52.8, plus 10 seconds, which gets you to 11 minutes, 2.8 seconds. Or, as I wrote here, 10 seconds total. So again, the text stream data indicates at the time this event was written, the trigger occurred, again, at 10 minutes. You see we have the T, 10 minutes, 57.4 seconds.
Dr. Walsh, if I could ask you a couple background questions. This block of time that you're reviewing, that mentions two triggers. Can you tell whether those triggers are immediately related or two separate events?
So you can tell they're separate events because there's a separate amount of time between them. There's about 8 minutes between the events.
I am a studio of one. Managing each part of the creative process means I need tools that can keep up with my ideas, no matter where inspiration strikes.
Little to the left, please.
And sometimes that epic workstation I work so hard for can feel like a lead weight drowning my creativity. Which brings me to the Wacom Move Ink, an ultra-portable lightweight.
It's because there's a separate amount of time between them. There's about 8 minutes between the events.
We'll be
And so
done
they're
soon.
on the same ignition cycle, meaning the vehicle hasn't been turned off in between, and we have this continuously running clock that records when these things occurred. So it tells us when event 1 occurred, when event 2 occurred. We know it's on the same ignition cycle. So if we have some idea when the car was turned on, we can then tie that back to clock time or real world time. Okay. So, lots going on here, right? A lot to digest. This is trigger event 1162.1. I was provided with data and a report from Mr. Burgess that indicated the infotainment system was turned on at 12:36. That corresponded to a GPS location that looked like it was outside the Waterfall Grill on Washington Street. So additional cell phone data that we had is that we knew there was a 3-point turn made when the Lexus passed Fairview on Cedar Crest, pulled into a driveway, and made a 3-point turn. So what you see over here is GPS data from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, and with that information and knowing when the system turned on, we're able to now tie the text stream data to a real clock. meaning what time of day did that text stream trigger occur. So going from the running clock to a real world clock. So if you take when it was turned on for Mr. Burgess's report, you can see that the Lexus was turned on at 12:12:36. You add in the text stream information, you get it at 12:23:38. And now we have a cell phone data point at 1:54. So at the time my report was written in these slides back in January, that was all the information we had in terms of data point 1:54. That was the one that was closest in time to. So we had since received additional information.
Dr. Walsh, let me ask you a couple questions, and if you can zoom in a little, we might be able to see it a little better from here.
Where would you like it?
If we can start at the top when you explain the text. You told us that the text stream data does not have an actual clock, it has a running clock, like a stopwatch?
Correct.
And then you mentioned that after you receive information from Mr. Burgess, you could put an actual time onto it. How do you do that? You shared with us that the text stream data runs on a running clock. Correct. And then you received further information so that you could actually identify a time. Where did you receive that information from?
That was from Mr. Burgess's report.
And do you know where that information came from?
That came off the SD card, I believe, in the infotainment system.
Do you know when Mr. Burgess found the SD card on the infotainment system?
No, I'd have to go back to his report. But it was in it, this information was in his original report.
Based on the SD card information about when the car was turned on and off, how do you match that with the text stream data to get a time?
So when the car is turned on, that's approximately when the running clock starts in it. There may be as much as a 3-second delay in it, but that's approximately when the clock turns on. So this shows us when the stopwatch was started for the text stream data. So knowing that infotainment system has date and timestamps on it, so that ties it to a real world clock from GPS information. And so now we can, when that infotainment system turned on, it's very close in time to when the text stream data started recording data, that allows us to tie the two together.
The times that you're showing on this slide, does that relate to the first or second event of the text stream data, the first or second triggering event?
The first event.
Do you characterize the first event in any way?
I call it the 3-point turn.
In addition to the data you analyzed, was there any other information you saw that evidence or supported that a 3-point turn occurred at the area depicted in your slide?
Right. We have a whole series of GPS data with heading angles, as well as a description that Ms. Reed gave in the interview.
The time that you have after you consider the SD card ignition on and the running time, what clock is that based on?
It's my understanding that's a clock in the infotainment system, and then we are ultimately trying to also tie it back to the clock on his cell phone, Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone. Correct.
Do you have any understanding whether all devices have the exact same clock?
So it's my understanding they do not. In my discussions with Mr. Burgess, reading reports, that they can have, there can be as much as 30 seconds to a minute of variation.
Sustained.
Have you ever heard this term?
Sure. Disregard that.
Have you ever heard the term variance before?
I have.
What do you understand that to be?
That means differences from the answer.
I'm sorry, differences from what?
From typically the correct answer. I mean that a given data point has variance in
What?
terms of how it's measured, when it's measured. So different measurement device can have a different variance around the actual true number.
You mentioned on the slide a time of 12:23:38.
Correct.
In O'Keefe's cell phone data, that point 154, approximately 12:23:58.
Correct.
Is there a difference between the clock on the Lexus text stream data and that of Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone?
There is.
When you developed the slide, did you have the benefit of more detailed information about data point 154?
I did not receive that until May.
Did you later learn more information, more specific information?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you learn? Like what? What is it?
Your Honor, I'd like to show an exhibit to Mr. Welch that has already been admitted. 192A.
Here are 3 tips to create better content with your smartphone. Tip number 1, good lighting. Tip number 2, good audio. And tip number 3, stabilize it or get a good mounting solution. Meet the Mobile Creator Kit. BloomCube has done the dirty work and assembled the perfect all-in-one.
Can we start with 192 feet? Dr. Welcher?
Yes. All right, guys, this was as of 11:50 a.m. this morning. I am told that they took a pretty longer sidebar, and then there was a few more, and then they took a pretty long lunch. So here's what we're gonna do, just because I told you guys I couldn't really stay for a long time. I just landed from Boston to a different city today. So I do need to run. It's 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. However, I just calculated the time. And I do need to see this. I do need to watch it. I have not watched it yet. We're doing a video on all of the Commonwealth's experts, back to back to back, and this is witness number 40. So I do need to watch it. I think what we're going to do, for anybody on the East Coast, I apologize, but I'm going to start tomorrow at 7 a.m. just so I can catch up with Dr. Welcher and put us back on regular schedule with the travel schedule. And again, I do want to take some time to think about what I've seen from his testimony so far, just to catch us up with everyone. But real quick, before I go, I will read super chats. I'm going to start at 7. All my UK people are going to love that. All the people in Australia are going to love that too. If you are in the East Coast, you know, again, this is today's testimony, but I'm about 2 hours behind, and I can put it back to normal tomorrow, and then we'll be back with everyone else. So let me read our super chats, and then we'll go from there. And yeah, let's go to Deonra, who's been with me for 14 months. Thank you, Deonra. Says hello, AV and chat. D, I can't believe it's been that long. Thank you for hanging out with me for all your time as a member. Shout out to Scar with the $10 super sticker. Appreciate you, Scar. You know, you're always here. Love seeing you in chat. It's so
Okay,
weird
I
that
think
my
that's pretty
soundboard,
much it.
guys, like,